So hi everyone, I'm going to wait a little longer for more people to join and then we'll get started. Cool, right, let's get started. Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know, my name's Evelyn, and any newcomers, welcome to the half-term courses. So, yesterday's session, we had a look at quadratic equations, and we also had a look at some quadratic graphs as well. We're going to go through a quick recap of what we did yesterday, and then we'll move on to today's session. So remember, if you have any questions at all, make sure you put them in the Q&A, and any answers to any questions as well, like some of the example questions that we go through, make sure to put your answers in the chat. So let's start with the recap. So to solve by factorizing, to solve quadratic equations by factorizing, we need to rearrange the quadratic equation to make sure that it's equal to 0. So always make sure it's equal to 0. Then you need to find two numbers that multiply to make C and they add together to make B, and then you form your two brackets with those numbers in the brackets, and then you set each bracket equal to 0 and then you solve for x. So you have two values for x. Now, to solve by difference of two squares, remember we'll have an x squared and then minus a squared number, and that equals to 0. So remember, we're still making sure that the equation equals to 0. Then since you have your squared number, you just square root it and you have x plus that number, x minus that number, then you set it equal to 0. And when you set each of the brackets equal to 0, you got x equals a and x equals minus a. We're going to go through some example questions because all the letters can be a little bit confusing. But one important point that I'd like to make is make sure that you check your answers by substituting them back into the equation and see if your numbers are correct. So, and what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at an example question. Right, what I would like you guys to do is to try both of these questions. What answers do you get for the first one and the second one? So have a go at these. There are two different types of quadratic equations. There's two different types of ways to solve them. So have a go at it. And make sure to put your answers in the chat as well. So hi Max, thank you for asking. I'm good. So we've got a few answers already. Also, just to remind you guys, if there is anything that you've missed or if you've missed a few of the previous sessions, they are being recorded and they will be uploaded to the MyTutor YouTube channel. So make sure to go back and rewatch them if there is anything you've missed or anything that you didn't quite understand. That's absolutely fine. We are going to go through the question as well. So hopefully it'll make sense once I go through it with you. If it doesn't make a lot of sense, then make sure to watch the YouTube video on the MyTutor YouTube page. Right, we've got a few more answers. I'll just answer one more question. The Kahoot will be at the end of the session today, so probably around 1:45. And the rest of the session will be on proportion and inequalities. So let's have a go at these two questions now. So first things first, the first equation is equal to 0, so we don't need to rearrange it or anything. Now, to solve this one, I would say solve by factorizing. So we need two numbers that multiply to make negative 18, and they add to make negative 3. So the two numbers that you should have gotten should have been, oops, let me get the pen. They should have been -6 and 3. So if we check them, -6 times 3 gives us -18, and then -6 plus 3 gives us -3. So these are the numbers that we need. Two numbers that multiply to make -18 and add to make -3. Then we're going to use these numbers in our brackets. So we've got x and we've got a -6, so x minus 6, and then x and a +3, so x plus 3. And this equals to 0. And then the final thing, remember we're solving, so we need x equals something at the end. We can't just factorize it. We need to set each of the brackets equal to 0. So we've got x minus 6 equals 0 and x plus 3 equals 0. And then remember to solve on the left-hand side, we're going to add 6 on both sides. You've got x equals 6. And on the right-hand side, we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. So x equals -3. So x equals 6 and x equals -3. Those should be your two answers. Someone did ask, would you get a mark for factorizing? You will definitely get a mark for factorizing. The only thing is that if you don't solve it, if you don't get x equals at the end, you can't get full marks because they asked you to solve it. So always remember the difference between solving and factorizing. Right, the second one looks a little bit more tricky. Now remember, always set the equation equal to 0 first. So we're going to rearrange it. So we want x squared minus something equals 0. So to do that, we're going to subtract by 13 on both sides. So we've got x squared minus 68 minus 13 equals 0. And then if we do minus 68 minus 13, we get minus 81. So now we've got a difference of two squares equation because we've got x squared and 81 is a squared number. Now, 81 is the same as saying 9 squared. So we can put a +9 and a -9 in the brackets. And then we are going to set each bracket equal to 0. So we've got the left-hand side, and then to solve on the left-hand side, we need to subtract by 9 on both sides. So x equals -9. And on the right-hand side, we need to add 9 to both sides. So x equals +9. So you should get x equals -9 and x equals 9 for that one. So well done, guys, for getting that. Hopefully it does make sense. If it doesn't, make sure to watch yesterday's session on YouTube. Right, I'm just going to answer a few more questions. Someone asked, do you have to give both answers? Yes, you do. If to get full marks, you need to give both answers. Someone asked, can x be two different answers? Yes, x can be two different answers. X also, yesterday in the Kahoot quiz, we found that x could equal one answer as well. So make sure that you're checking your answers and you're fully factorizing as well, because you might get one, you might get two, but it's more likely you'll get two. And someone said, in foundation tier, would they use non-squared numbers? That's a tough question. I think they could possibly use non-squared numbers. Yeah, it does depend. It is based on you understanding the difference of two squares method. So I would say as long as you understand how to do it, answering the question shouldn't be too tricky. Just remember, when you square root something, you get a positive and a negative. Because remember, the square root of 4, if you put it on your calculator, it gives you 2. But remember, -2 times -2 gives you 4 as well. So -2 could also be an answer. Right. So let's have a look at proportion and inequalities. So this is what we'll be covering today. We're going to be going through drawing inequalities on a number line, solving inequalities, and then we're going to go through solving one type of proportion question as well at the end. And it's quite a popular proportion question as well. So inequalities. Now, all of you have seen an inequality before. You can have one of these four symbols to represent a type of inequality. You can have this one. This one means greater than. So the number on this side is greater than the number on this side. Here it means greater than or equal to. It has a line underneath it. So you can see with the less than or equal to as well. If it could potentially be equal to it, it will have a line underneath this sort of like arrow. And then here you have less than. So you say this number on this side is less than this number on this side. Now, an easy way, a lot of people do get confused with inequalities. An easier way to sort of remember it is this point. Think about it like a crocodile's mouth, and the crocodile always eats the largest number. So if you have a look here, it kind of looks like a crocodile's mouth. You can sort of imagine it. Now, that means that the bigger number goes on this side where the mouth is open, and the smaller number goes on the other side. Yeah. So if we have a look at some examples below, we've got x is greater than or equal to 3. Yeah. X is on this side where the mouth is open. So x is bigger than 3. And then we have the line underneath it. So it could be equal to. So numbers which represent this, it could be 3, because remember, it could be equal to it. It could be 4, 5, 6, 7, any number that's bigger than 3 as well. Yeah. Now, the next example, we've got 100 and is less than 120. This is true. 100 is smaller than 120. You could write numbers like this, and you can always have inequalities like this as well. So you've got the x in between two numbers. So you've got 2 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 5. So that means x is in between 2 and 5. Yeah, but it's also including 2 and 5 as well, because we've got the equal to. We've got the line underneath the sign. Yeah. So hopefully that's just a recap of inequalities. Now, finding inequalities using a number line. So a lot of the time with inequalities, sometimes they do ask you to draw it on a number line and represent inequalities on a number line. Now, to do this, you can either have a solid circle or a hollow circle. So if I just quickly show you what I mean by this. So a hollow circle looks like this. Yeah, so it's not colored in. Now this represents a less than or greater than sign, but a solid circle is one that is colored in. So this is going to be less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. Yeah, so if we have a look at the number line below, we've got a solid circle, so we know that we're going to have a less than or equal to or a greater than or equal to. And we look at the number that is above. So it's 3. So how we're going to represent this inequality is we're going to say that x is smaller than or equal to 3. Yeah. Now, look at the line. Look at the direction that the arrow is pointing towards. So if we have a look, this arrow is going this way, and all the numbers below it are numbers that are smaller than 3. So all those numbers are to the left of 3. Now, if we think about our number line, anything that's towards the left means it's getting smaller. Anything towards the right is getting bigger. So to represent this as an inequality, we have x, and it's smaller than and or equal to 3, our number. Now, sometimes use the arrows to help. Use the directions of the arrows to help. You can see that the arrow sort of pointing in the same direction that your inequality is. So sometimes that does help as well. Any more questions? We're not going to go through completing the square, and we finished with quadratics for now, but we will go through a quick recap of it tomorrow as well. Right, so getting onto these example questions, think about the number that the circle is above. Think about where the arrow is pointing or where the line is going towards. Then think about, is it hollow or is it colored in? And how can we represent it as an inequality? So I'd like you guys to have a go at the first one and see what answers you get. So someone asked, will this be in an exam? It could be, yeah. They could ask you to represent it on a number line. They could also give you the number line and ask you to represent it as an inequality. In higher GCSE maths, they do ask you to draw a graph as well, which we won't be going through today, but it's all based on your understanding of this anyway. So once you understand this, you should be able to draw the graph of it when you look at it in higher GCSE. How many marks would you get for this question? I'd probably say maybe like 2 marks, 1 mark for getting the actual symbol right. So whether it's greater than or less than, or greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to, and getting the number right as well. Yes, definitely try this question. Have a go at the first question. The second question we'll probably go through together because it might be something that you haven't seen before, but definitely have a go at the first one. And someone asked an exam technique question. So someone says start at the back of the paper to get the harder questions out of the way first. What do you advise? It depends on your preference. Sometimes people find it easier to start at the back because the harder questions take longer and then the easier questions are shorter. So it might help you with timing, but also some people get thrown off when you start with a harder question. Because a lot of the time, if you start with a harder question, you don't know how to do it. It can knock on your confidence when you try to get through the rest of the paper. So I would usually advise start with a question you know how to answer to build your confidence before you get to harder questions, just so you don't make silly mistakes. Right, let's have a go at this question. Right, so we know we're going to have an X in there. When we're representing inequalities, we usually have a letter. Yeah. Now, the number that the circle is above is -2. So that's the number that is going to be in our inequality. It's not the number above the arrow. It's always the number, sorry, not the number below the arrow. It's always the number below the circle. Now, the only thing left to do is figure out which sign goes in there. Is it going to be a greater than, less than, or greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to? Now, it's hollow, so it's not going to have a line underneath it. It's not anything to do with equals to. So it's either greater than or less than. Now, all of the numbers underneath this line here, all the numbers underneath this line are to the right of -2. That means all those numbers are getting bigger. So that means X is larger than -2. Now, some of you in your solutions, you wrote this. Both of these are correct, because remember, it doesn't matter whether the number or the letter comes first. It depends on the direction of your inequality. Remember, the bigger number goes next to the open mouth. So X is still next to the opening of the arrow. So both of these are correct. It doesn't matter which order, just as long as your sign is the right way round. Now, the one below is going to represent that it's going to represent the 3-part inequality we saw near the beginning, yeah? So we know that all these numbers underneath this line are all between 2 numbers at the ends, yeah? So the first thing that we should do is write the numbers, because remember, your inequality, if I can click on the pen, the inequality is always going to have the numbers below the circles. So we know we're going to have a -3 in there, and we know we're going to have a 4 in there. Now, our X is going to go in the middle, but now we have to think of the signs. Now, all of these numbers are to the right of -3. So they're all going to be bigger than -3. And all of these numbers are to the left of 4. So they're all going to be smaller. Now, the last thing to look at is, are the circles hollow or are they colored in? The first one's hollow, so we don't need our line underneath that sign. But the second one is colored in, so we do need the line underneath our inequality sign. So this would be the inequality for the second graph. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone. If you do have any questions, so someone asked, why is the line bold for the first one? That's just the way how they've drawn it. Whether the line is bold or whether it's not bold, it doesn't make a difference with the inequality. It's just the circle and the direction, which way is the line going in, but it doesn't matter how thick the line is. Right, so If you do have any more questions, put them in the Q&A. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do it the other way around. We're going to start with the inequality and then we're going to draw the number line. So remember, a hollow circle represents greater than or smaller than, solid circle greater than or equal to, smaller than or equal to, and make sure your line goes all the way to the end of the number line. So let's have a look at this one here. We've got x and we've got it greater than 6. So we need to draw a number line. Now no, this isn't going to be very straight, but let's say that you've got 0 here, 1 here, 2 here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Obviously, draw it with a ruler when when you do it in an exam. And draw it as neat as you can as well, so that it's really easy to read. But we've got our number line. That's the first thing that you do. The next thing, remember your circle always goes over the number. So we're going to put a circle here. Then I need to think about, is it colored in or is it hollow? Well, there's no line underneath the inequality sign, so it's going to be hollow. So that's the first thing. Now the last thing is, which direction is my line going to go in? Now this inequality tells me that x is greater than 6, so it should be all of the numbers towards the right. So if you think about all the numbers which are greater than 6, 7 is greater than 6, 8 is greater than 6, 9 is greater than 6. So we're going to have a line that's going like this, and make sure you put your arrow just to show that it continues to go upwards as well. Yeah, so think about, if you find it a little bit difficult to think about which way the arrow goes, think about numbers as well. Which numbers would work with this inequality? 3 is not bigger than 6, so our line shouldn't be going anywhere near the 3. But 8 is, so it should be going towards 8 and further up as well. One thing I like to point out, in your exam, if they do ask you to draw a number line with inequalities, if you don't draw your line all the way to the end, if instead you did something like this, here we go. If you did this, then you wouldn't get full marks. You'll lose a mark. Your line has to go all the way to the end. Yeah, and that's just because if your line did stop a bit shorter and it didn't go over the 10, you're kind of saying that 10 isn't greater than 6, but it is. So you have to make sure that it goes all the way to the end and you have an arrow going further. So always make sure you do that. Can you get more than 3-part inequalities? No, not at GCSE. You can't get more than 3-part inequalities. But you could be asked to solve 3-part inequalities, and that's a little bit more tricky. So we will have a go at some of those. I think we have, I'm not too sure whether we do have a question in here or not. I have to check. How do you type the greater than or equal to sign and less than or equal to sign? If you press, I think it's Alt, and then the sign on the computer, I think you might be able to get it. What's the difference between a full circle compared to a single circle? Can we do it? Okay. So remember, a hollow circle, so one that's not colored in, represents these. Oops, I shouldn't draw a line underneath them because that'll make it a bit confusing. It represents these inequalities, and the colored in circle, like this, represents these inequalities. So if it is equal to, if instead the question said x is greater than or equal to 6, then you color it in. But since it's not, then we leave it as a hollow circle. Right. What I would like, it's going to be hard for you to show this on the chat. So let's go through these together. Now, I'll start with 0, 1, 2, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, minus 5, minus 6. Okay, right. I want to represent x is less than or equal to 1 on the number line. Yeah. Now, first things first, the circle goes over the 1. Right, we've got a circle. Right. Is it going to be a hollow circle or a colored in circle? What do you guys think? Is it going to be hollow or colored in? Brilliant. Yeah, all of you are right. It's going to be colored in because it's got a line underneath the sign. Right. And do you think that my line is going to go to the left or is it going to go to the right? Brilliant. It is going to go to the left because remember, x is smaller than or equal to 1. So all the numbers that are smaller than are towards the left. So we draw a line, it goes all the way to the end of the number line and we draw an arrow. And that's how you get full marks for that one. Cool. So next thing is let's have a go at this one over here. Right. Okay, so for this one, we're going to use the same sort of methods. What are the numbers? We're going to put a circle above those numbers, and then we're going to figure out, is it hollow? Is it colored in? And where is the line going to go? Yeah, so first things first, the numbers. So we've got -4 and 2. So we're going to have a circle over -4. We're going to have a circle over 2. Next thing, x is larger than 4. But it's not larger than or equal to, but x is smaller than or equal to 2. So what should my circle above -4 be? Should it be colored in or hollow? What should my circle above 2 be? Should it be colored in or hollow? So everyone's saying hollow for the first one. What do you think for the one above 2? Colored in, brilliant. So remember, this symbol, it doesn't have a line underneath it, but this one does. So the first one is hollow, the second one is colored in. Now, the last thing to do is figure out where is our line going to go? Where do you think my line should go? Some of you saying in between, some of you saying towards the right. Let's see. So our line is going to go in between these two circles, yeah? Because remember, if x is bigger than -4, then all of these numbers, all of the numbers towards the right sort of count. But remember, x also has to be equal to or less than 2 as well. So we have to find all the numbers that are bigger than -4 and smaller than 2. So that's all the numbers in the middle. So that's where our line is going to go. All right, let's go through a few questions that people are asking. Does the number line need to have arrows at the end to show that the numbers continue? Yes, that's exactly why we have the line going all the way to the end with the arrow, because it shows that even the numbers, like say, if we have a look at the first one, numbers, if we continue going down here, we'd have -7, -8, -9, -10. All of those are still smaller than 1. So we're still counting all of them rather than drawing a really, really long number line. Someone asked, when doing number line, would we always put first -6? No, the only reason why I did it is because that's just how I decided to draw my number line. If you decided to start at -3, as long as your inequality can fit on your number line and is big enough for the examiner to see it and to mark it, then it's absolutely fine. It doesn't matter which numbers are at each end, as long as your inequality can fit on it. So hopefully that answers some of your questions. Someone asked, do you need to include x in the number line? No, x just represents a bunch of numbers. Yeah, so x represents this 0. If I come here, x represents 0. It also represents this -1 and -2. That's why we're using a letter and not a number, because it's just saying for all these different numbers that we could have, we're just going to call it x, and x is just between -4 and 2. So hopefully that makes a bit more sense. So someone said, how do you know that x is greater than 4 if the line doesn't go past the circle? So this line here represents all the numbers that could be x. Yeah, so if the line is only here, that means that x can't be any of the numbers outside of this line. So x can't be 4, x can't be 3, x can't be -6, x can't be -5. It's only the numbers below that line. Hopefully that answers your question. Right, getting on to solving now. Solving equations is very similar to, solving inequalities is very similar to solving equations. Yeah, the only difference is if you divide with a negative number, you have to switch your inequality sign around. Now, sometimes it's really hard to remember this. So to avoid it, I always suggest find the smallest x and move it. So some of you were asking, why do I do that? On Tuesday, you were asking, why do I always find the smallest x and move it? It's because of negative numbers. If you do this with inequalities, you don't have to remember anything else. If you just find the smallest x and move it, then you don't have to worry about dividing with negative numbers and switching around the sign for inequalities. So if we have a look at the first one, now the first one only has one x, so we're just going to leave it on that side. Yeah, but I want to solve it. Now I can imagine that it's an equals sign in the middle instead of an inequalities, and then we know how to solve it. Do exactly that. Just one thing I would suggest, do not change the inequality sign to an equal sign, because if you forget to change it back, then you will lose marks. So just leave it where it is and do the same method that you would do for solving equations. So the first thing we would do is subtract 5 by both sides, because remember, we want to get x on one side by itself. We want to isolate it. So if we subtract 5 by both sides, we're left with 3x on the left. We keep our inequality sign exactly the same in the same position. Then we've got 14 minus 5. So we've got 3x, inequality sign, and then 14 minus 5 is 9. And then remember, we want x by itself. So the last thing that we can do is divide by 3 on both sides to get rid of that 3. So we've got x, and then we've got 9 divided by 3, and x is equal to or smaller than 3. And that's how we solve inequalities. It looks a lot like equations, just don't change your inequality sign, because so many students do that and then they get the answer wrong because they don't forget to change it back. Right, someone asked, when answering a question, what is the minimum length of a number line? It's up to you. It's your choice. There's no right or wrong answer for that, and they won't give you a mark, or you won't lose a mark on how short or how long your number line is. As long as you can represent the number with the circle and an arrow that goes all the way to the end of whichever number line you decide to draw, you'll get full marks, as long as you do it right. Now, what I'd like you guys to do, since it's like what we did on Tuesday, I'd like you to have a go at solving the second one. We'll go through the third one together, but have a go at solving the second one. Find the smallest x, move it, and isolate x, get it by itself on one side. What answers do you get for that one? I will go through the second one in a second, but what I'd like you guys to do is have a go at it. Doesn't matter if you get it wrong or right for now. We will go through it in a minute or two. But have a go. Yeah, exactly, Max. So Max said, so you basically treat it like an equals sign and keep it the same. Yeah. So you treat it like an equal sign, but you just don't write an equal sign. And then you solve. Someone asks, after solving it, do we have to put it on a number line? No. So if you have to draw a number line, they'll tell you represent this inequality on a number line, or they'll say draw the number line or something like that. But if they ask you to solve an inequality, all they want is x and then the inequality and then the number. Right, so I'll let you guys have a few more seconds. Yes, Morgan, you're on the right track. You are going to take away the x's first, and you'll be left with something on the left-hand side. We're going to have a go at it now. Right, let's have a look. So we're going to treat it just like an equal sign, but we're going to keep it exactly the same. We're not going to change it. Right, the first thing that we would do in an equation is find the smallest x and move it. That's exactly what we're going to do here. Now we have two x's. We've got 6x and a 4x. The smallest one is 4. So we're going to subtract 4x from both sides. So we've got 6x, then we have a minus 4x, minus 3, have exactly the same inequality sign, and then we're left with minus 13 on the right-hand side. Then 6x minus 4x is 2x. Minus 3 is equal to or greater than minus 13. And then what we can do is continue to solve. So similar to the first question that we went through, what we're going to do now is we're going to get rid of that minus 3. So we're going to add 3 to both sides. So we get 2x is larger than or equal to minus 13 plus 3. So 2x is larger than or equal to minus 10. And then we're going to divide both sides by 2. So we've got x is equal to or larger than minus 5, because minus 10 divided by 2 is minus 5. So x is equal to or greater than minus 5. That's what you should get for the first one. Now for the second one, sorry, for the last one, this one is a little bit trickier. So let's have a look at this hint that I've put in the bubble. So whichever operations you do in the middle to get x by itself, you must do on all 3 parts of the inequality. So this might look really tricky in the beginning, but what we're going to do is we're going to solve. What we want to have is just x in the middle, x by itself in the middle, and then we have an inequality that looks quite familiar. So we've gone through a few like representing questions on this already. So let's have a look at how we're going to do this. So I want to get x by itself. So what I could do is I could get rid of this 5. I could subtract 5. So if I subtract 5 in the middle, I have to subtract 5 on the right-hand side, and I have to subtract 5 on the left-hand side. So remember, when you're solving equations, you have a left and a right-hand side, but you have to do the operations on both sides. With inequalities like this, if you do it in the middle or on the right-hand side, you have to do it on every other side as well. So the middle, the right, and the left. So what we're going to have is minus 3 minus 5. Keep the inequality signs exactly the same. In the middle, we're left with 2x. And on the right-hand side, we've got 21 minus 5. Now we can just simplify those numbers. So minus 3 minus 5 is minus 8. We've got 2x in the middle. And then we've got 21 minus 5, which is 16. Now, we still haven't got an x by itself yet, but to do that, we can divide by 2. So if we divide by 2, we'll be left with x in the middle by itself. But remember, we have to divide 2 on all sides of the inequality. So we're going to keep the inequality signs exactly the same, but minus 8 divided by 2 is minus 4. And 16 divided by 2 is 8. And we've got an x by itself in the middle, so that is our final answer. We don't have to do anything else. When you're solving, remember, you just want to get x by itself. So if you come across inequalities like this, remember, do it on every single side, no matter what operation you do, whether it's adding, subtracting, dividing, multiplying, do it on all 3 sides and try and get x by itself. Right, someone asked, would you still get marks if you skip some steps? Yeah, if you get to the right answer, depending on the mark scheme, because sometimes your marks are method marks, so they're looking for your working out. I would suggest try not to skip steps. Write down all of your working out, because if you skip steps, sorry, when you come back to checking your answer, you might not understand what you've written. Moreover, you might have gotten one of the steps that you did in your head wrong, and you won't be able to see it. So I would always suggest write all of your working out down, and you will be able to pick up on mistakes easier. Right, someone asked, how do you know what to divide or subtract? So all I'm doing is I'm following the steps that I went through on Tuesday. So solving equations is all the same. So imagine if I had an equal sign, it's just solving that way. So all I want to do is get x by itself. Now on Tuesday, what I said was, if you have, like, say you're multiplying with x and then you're adding something or subtracting something, it's always easier to work with the adding and subtracting first and then do the multiplication and division at the end, because you have to do everything to the whole thing on all sides. So it's easier to get rid of the adding first or the subtracting first, then work with the division. Someone asked, how many marks would the last question be? This question, maybe about 3 or 4 marks, maybe, probably. There's quite a lot of steps as well. Like I would say maybe at least 3 marks, I would say, for that one. Would the signs ever change? The signs might change if you're dividing by a negative number. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you had something like -2 minus 2x is smaller than or equal to 8. I'm going to have to divide by -2. Oops, getting this wrong now. Divide by -2. Now, if you are dividing by a negative number and your question is on an inequality, you do the division, so you get x, and then on the right hand side, 8 divided by -2 is -4, but your inequality now has to swap. This is what I was saying before. If you have a negative number, you have to swap the sign. Now, when you are solving with questions like this one, where you have an x on both sides, the easiest thing to do is move the smallest x. If you move the smallest x, you won't get a negative x on one side, so you don't have to worry about dividing with a negative number. That's why I always say look for the smallest one. On the last question, why do we do the same on both sides? But on the first one, we only do the same on one side. On the first one, we did it on both sides. So remember, we subtracted by 5 and then we divided by 3 on both sides. So we divided 3x by 3 and then 9 by 3. And then we got to x. So it's always on all sides. It's never on just one side. Right. And would you get fractional values? Yes, you can get fractional values as well. So whatever the division is equal to, it can be a fraction. It could be a decimal. So be careful with those ones. Now, just for time, I will look at your questions in a second, but we're going to move on to proportion. Now, two amounts which are proportional, you can say that you can multiply one with a constant and get another one. Yeah. So let's say that, I don't know. We'll go through an example in a second what I mean by that. But proportion questions are often about how much ingredients is needed to make some type of food. All of you, I'm sure, have seen a question like that before. And we're going to go through this type of question today on proportion because it comes up in both papers and it is a very popular question to be asked in GCSE. So sometimes it helps to find how much one thing is worth first and then find out what the other things are worth. So this type of question, I'm sure all of you have seen before. Yeah, if you haven't, then you are seeing it now. Now, the question is saying that here's a list of ingredients for making 10 flapjacks. So you need 80 grams of rolled oats to make 10 flapjacks, 60 grams of butter, 30 milliliters of golden syrup, 36 grams of light brown sugar. Now they've asked you to work out what the amount of each ingredient is needed to make 15 flapjacks. So what you can do is, first of all, each of these are proportional. So if I need 80 rolled oats to make 10 flapjacks, I could divide both of these by 10 and say, okay, I need 8 grams to make 1 flapjack. That's what we mean by proportional. It means that if I divide it by the same number, or if I multiply it by the same number, I'll get a proportional amount. Now, if I want 15, now 15 is not a multiple of 10, so we're going to have to do something else. What I would suggest is, if it comes up in a non-calculator paper, sometimes it's not easier to make, to find out how much 1 flapjack is worth, because for the first 3, we could divide it by 10, but then we get 3.6 when we divide 36 by 10. So it could be a little bit more tricky when you're not using a calculator. So one method, if you do have a calculator, then you can divide everything by 10 and times it by 15. If you don't have a calculator, what you could do is work out how much 5 flapjacks, how many of each ingredient 5 flapjacks need. Now, if 10 gives us 80, what we can do is half it so that 40 grams gives us the amount that we need for rolled oats, 30, and then 15, 15, and then 18. So 30 grams, 15 milliliters, and 18 grams of each of those ingredients to make 5 flapjacks. Now we're not done because we want 15. Now to get from 5 to 15, we have to multiply by 3 exactly what you guys are saying. So the first thing that we're going to do, we want to have 40 multiplied by 3, which gives us 120. So we know that we have 120 grams of rolled oats. Then we have 30 multiplied by 3, which gives us 90. We have 90 grams of butter. And then we've got 15 multiplied by 3, which gives us 45. So we have 45 milliliters of golden syrup. And the last one is 18 multiplied by 3, which is 54. So we've got 54 grams of light brown sugar. Cool. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense to you guys. Remember, if it is a calculator paper, divide it by 10 and then multiply by 15. That will also give you exactly all of these answers. What I would suggest is when you are using a calculator, write all of your steps and write your numbers down first and then continue to do the calculation. It's so easy to do everything on a calculator and not check your answers afterwards. Right, some tips before we start Kahoot. Always remember to move the smallest x first. When drawing inequalities, make sure the line goes all the way to the end of the number line. If you find it easier to work out how much ingredients is needed for one person, do that first. So divide by however many it's for and then multiply by how many you need. And then show you're working out for all proportion questions. It's really important. Now, I know that I did go through that a little bit quickly, just because of time, I did go through that a bit quickly, but remember, if you did miss anything, go on the YouTube, MyTutor YouTube page and just look over whatever parts you want to look over. But for now, I'd like you guys to sign into Kahoot so we can get to playing the game. And if you do still have any, I think there's a few questions which I haven't answered. So I'm going to go ahead and answer those questions while we're playing Kahoot. If you do still have more questions, make sure you put them in the Kahoot, in the Q&A, sorry, so I can see them. And yeah, I'll be checking it throughout. So. So someone asked, what is the answer for the last one? So the last one, all you had to do was work out how many grams or milliliters of each ingredient was needed to make 15 flapjacks. So all the numbers that I wrote down on the dotted lines, all of those would be the answers that you get for that question. I'll wait a few more minutes for everyone to sort of come in. And also thank you for the compliments, guys, over the last few days. You've been giving me some really nice compliments. So thank you. I have been seeing them. I haven't been ignoring them. Right, I am going to start the Kahoot now. The pin will be at the bottom of the screen. So if you still want to sign in or you haven't been able to, you'll still be able to. Right, so inequalities and proportion. Right, which one is the correct description for the following? How do we describe that inequality? Right, someone asked, was proportion in the higher paper? Yes. You can definitely get that sort of question in the higher paper. Sometimes they might ask a little bit of a trickier question when it comes to that. And also it's more likely to be in the non-calculator paper. Someone, brilliant. So yes, this is, if you have a look, the X is on the open part of the sign. So it is going to be greater than, and it's got the line underneath it. So it's greater than or equal to. Brilliant. So well done, guys. Well done for the top 5. Right. X is an integer. What are the possible values that X could be given that satisfy the inequality? Have a look at the inequality. What numbers could work in there? Someone asked, was the previous question that we went through, was that inverse and direct proportion? No. Inverse and direct proportion are a little bit different. They're different types of questions. Inverse and direct proportion, you'll have something like, they'll tell you that it'll be very, very clear, the question. They'll say, oh, this number is inversely proportional, directly proportional to this. Right, let's have a look at this one. So 18, 19, 20, brilliant. Remember, these are greater than, so X is greater than 17 and X is smaller than 21. So it doesn't include 17 and 21 because there's no line underneath it. It's not equal to. So it's just all the whole numbers, which are, because remember, X is an integer, it's all the whole numbers. So brilliant. So well done for the top 5. Right, have a go at this one. Which sign should go in between the following numbers? They are negative numbers, so pay attention to that and be careful when answering. Right, someone asked, would the inequality sign always change if you multiplied with a negative number? Yes. If you're multiplying, like say if it's minus 3x, you're gonna have to change the sign. Right, let's have a look. So which number is smaller? Is it minus 5.02 or minus 5.2? Well, minus 5.2 is smaller because it's more negative. Yeah. So remember, it's negative numbers, not positive numbers. So the sign would be the blue one. Yeah. Brilliant. So well done for the top 5. Right, double the points this time. What is the following represented as an inequality? To have a look at the number line. What do you guys think? So when will the video be uploaded? I think I don't personally upload the video, but the video should be uploaded by tomorrow, I think. So have a look out for it tomorrow. If not, it will definitely be up by Friday. So just have a look out for it. Look out on the MyTutor YouTube channel and you should find it. Thank you, Amina. Right, any more questions, guys? So what topics are we doing tomorrow? Tomorrow is going to be a recap. I'm only going to go through like 1 or 2 questions from Monday, everything we did from Monday up until today. The rest of the session will be exam techniques and revision techniques. So let's have a look at this one. So remember, the circles are above the numbers -4 and 3. So -4 and 3 should be the numbers in your inequality. And the line is between it, so we should have the X in between those numbers. And then the final thing, the first one is hollow, the second one is colored in. So the first one shouldn't have a line underneath it, but the second one should have a line underneath it. So that's why it's the orange or the yellow one. Right, brilliant. So well done for the top 5. Have a go at this one. So which of the following represent X is larger than -2? Right, will we try exam questions tomorrow? Yes, we are going to try, I would say maybe like 1 or 2 exam questions based on the topics that we've covered this week so far. But again, if any of you, I'll say it after we go through this question actually. Right, x is larger than -2. So remember, the number that should be below the circle is -2. So it should either be the yellow one or the blue one, because those are the only ones where the circle's above -2. Then we have to check, is it going to be a hollow circle or is it going to be a coloured in circle? It doesn't have a line underneath it in the inequality, so it should be a hollow circle. So it's the yellow one, not the blue one. So brilliant. Well done, guys. Right, have a go at this one. Solve x minus 13 is equal to or greater than 27. Right, what I was saying was anyone who has problems or would like some advice with exam techniques and revision techniques, I know I've gotten a lot of questions over the last couple of days. We are going to go through quite a few of those techniques in tomorrow's session, so make sure you do turn up for that. That will be really helpful, hopefully for all of you. Right, to solve this, we're going to solve it just like an equation. So we're going to get x by itself, so you have to get rid of that -13. You have to do the opposite and the inverse operation, so we add 13 to both sides. So we'll have 40 on the right hand side with exactly the same inequality. We don't change the inequality. Right, brilliant. Well done for the top 5. Right, inequalities are exactly the same as an equation. Is that true or false? Yes, unfortunately, our last lesson for this half-term series is tomorrow. There aren't any more sessions after that. Right. Brilliant. It is false. Inequalities and equations are not the same. Inequalities has a greater than or equal to or less than or equal to sign. Equations have an equal sign. So they're not the same. Cool. So well done. Well done, guys, for the top 5. Solve the following inequality, please. So have a look and have a go. So no problem, Joseon. Hopefully I'm saying your name right as well. So someone's asking, will there be, so a few of you have asked, are there going to be any more sessions like this over half term or the Christmas holidays? I am not entirely sure, but what I would say is keep checking the website, because there might be. So just in case, just make sure, and you'll probably get reminders or you'll be told about it anyways from MyTutor. So just keep looking out for it. Right, let's have a look. I think some of you said none of them are correct. Let's have a look. So if we add 6 to both sides, we get 4x is smaller than 16, and then you should have x is smaller than 4. So I think that one should be the yellow one. Sorry, I've made a little bit of a mistake there. Oh, sorry, no, it's none of them, because you should have x is smaller than 4. So yeah, I think, sorry guys, that is my one. That is my mistake. Sorry. But I can't really say well done because that one was wrong. But have a go at this double the points question. So 2 times 3x minus 5 is greater than 92. So I'm really sorry about the last one, guys. But someone asked me, how was your day been? It's been great, thank you. Will there be a Kahoot tomorrow? Yes, but the Kahoot will not be on any maths questions. It will be on exam techniques and revision techniques. So that one should be sort of fun. I know, I'm really sorry about the people who got 1 point for that last question. But if you have a go at this one's worth double the points, so hopefully it makes up for it. Okay, so we've got about there, just under 30 seconds left. Have a go at this one. Thank you for the compliments, guys. It's been great teaching all of you as well. I've really enjoyed it. I'm sad tomorrow's the last one as well. It's actually been really fun. Brilliant. Right, let's have a look at this one. So expand the brackets first, just like equations. If we expand the brackets, we get 6x minus 10 is greater than 92, and then we solve, and then we get x is greater than 17. So brilliant. Well done, guys. Right, second to last question, also worth double the points. Solve the following. Have a go at this. So remember what I was saying before? Just a little hint, look for the smallest x. So someone asked me, do I just do maths tuition or any other subjects? So I do maths tuition. I also do physics GCSE tuition as well. Also, guys, if you do need any extra tuition lessons, have a look on the MyTutor website. There are loads of really, really helpful tutors that you can choose from. So if that is something that you're looking for, definitely check out MyTutor and have a look. Remember, if any of these questions are a little bit confusing, or you do need a little bit more, like you'd like to go over the session again, it will be on the YouTube page. I would suggest having a look at the session on Tuesday as well as today's session, because the session on Tuesday helps you with solving equations, so that will help you solve these inequalities. So definitely go over those when you have the chance to, if you need to. Right, let's have a look at this one. So we will have x is greater than 1. So remember, look for the smallest x. The smallest x is negative 8x. So we're going to move that, add 8x to both sides. And then we'll have 10x plus 9 is greater than 19. Move the 9, 10x is greater than 10, and then x, divide by 10 on both sides, x is greater than 1. Right, brilliant. So well done for the top 5. We're nearly at the end. How much ginger is needed to make 20 gingerbread men? Have a look at this. You've got just under a minute now to finish this one. So whichever method you find easiest, and obviously if you have a calculator, you can use it, because I can't see you using a calculator. But make sure, and just a hint, check your units. Yeah. So be careful with your answers, guys. Make sure you're reading it carefully. Sorry, I'm going over time a little bit as well. Right. Brilliant. It is 50 grams, not 50 kilograms. So 20, I could divide 16 by 4 to get to 4. And then to get to 20, I can multiply it by 5. Now, if I go to ginger, I divide that by 4. That's 10 times it by 5, which gives me 50 grams, not kilograms. So be careful with units. Right, last question, and then we will be done. It's worth double the points. The greatest number of shortcakes you could make with 0.5 kilograms of butter is 40. Is that true or false? Remember, be careful with units. Right. 10 seconds left. Brilliant, it is false. 0.5 kilograms is the same as 500 grams. Now, if I look at butter, to make 12, I need 200 grams. Now, if I think about 500 grams, if I half this 200 grams, I'd have to half the number of shortcakes I make. So 6 shortcakes would give me 100 grams of butter. Now, if I multiply that by 5, 100 times 5 gives me my 500 grams. But 6 times by 5 gives me 30, not 40. So I could only make 30 shortcakes with 500 grams or 0.5 kilograms of butter. Right, so let's look at the podium and then we will finish there. So well done, Evelyn is the best. Well done for getting third. Sim, well done for getting second place. First place, well done to Kessia. And also well done to the runners-up, Kylie and James, Lee, I'm guessing. So brilliant. I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. Tomorrow will be exam techniques, revision techniques, and an algebra summary. I hope to see you guys tomorrow. All right, bye everyone.